Thank you all for having me today. Yeah, Charlotte and I met a couple of years ago, and yeah, I'm pleased that I've finally been able to meet the rest of you. I'm just setting my timer so I don't speak for too long. So this is me with my brother on our family farm in South Australia, and I grew up there and I spent the weekend there. I remain closely connected with it, although my parents and brother are the people that run the farm, and I live about 7 hours away in Adelaide. And work at the University of South Australia, where I do research with a team of people on farmers' mental health and well-being. And I'm a clinical psychologist by training, so like to think that I have a unique combination of skills of understanding farming and the agricultural culture and psychology as well. Um, so this is me on my family farm. As you can see on the right, sometimes it's very dry, and we've actually experienced drought periods recently in the last couple of years. But in the middle, it does rain at times, and our crops can be very lush as well. So the climate is very variable year to year. The organisation that I founded is called I Farm Well, and it was founded in about 2018. And what we aim to do, it's organised as a not-for-profit within the University of South Australia. And we aim to inspire and empower farmers to grow their own well-being through collaborations and build agricultural communities that thrive. And the way that we do this is enable farmers access to evidence-based, farmer-friendly wellbeing education and support and research and evaluation and advocacy that is all designed with and specifically for farmers. And the reason we do all of this is because we want to address barriers to traditional forms of mental health help seeking. In Australia, obviously distance is a big barrier, but attitudinal barriers are very significant as well. We want to provide evidence-based tools that help farmers to prepare to succeed, as well as manage well when they're distressed. We want to provide meaningful ways for farming community members to support each other and ultimately reduce the risk of suicide in at-risk farming communities. So I started research on farmers' mental health in about 2008, which happened to be a really bad drought period. But then several years later, I thought, wouldn't it be good, instead of looking at that data to understand, who's at risk of distress and all the negative sides of mental health, I thought it's about time that we looked at the data differently and established which farmers were coping effectively, despite being exposed to a large amount of stress during drought. And when we did that analysis, what we found was that if two farmers were exposed to the same amount of stress, the farmer that did not become distressed was the one at the top, and that's the person who managed to adopt acceptance as a coping strategies, and they didn't engage in behavioural disengagement. So essentially that means they didn't give up. So they focused their attention on what they could fix, and they accepted and let go of what they couldn't control. So that got me thinking. As a psychologist, I've used an approach called acceptance and commitment therapy quite a lot. And whenever I would go back to my rural community, I'd have people come up to me and say, "Oh, I'm a bit worried about this person, but how would you suggest that they access help?" And it sort of struck me that perhaps I could develop a program that would mimic a psychology session and put it online so that all these people who don't have access to face-to-face psychology sessions could access something free of charge. And I also knew that the farming culture is very important to our farmers, and ensuring that mental health professionals have an understanding and demonstrate that understanding of mental health issues, of farming culture is really important as well. So I thought, well, wouldn't it be great if we could combine the psychology with what farmers say they want, and all of what the research shows about how to change behaviour effectively, and develop that into an online program. And that's exactly what we did. So we synthesised a lot of research that we'd done ourselves and research done by others, And then we went to farmers and we asked them what would be acceptable to you if we were to develop this online program. And they gave us lots of good information. We've got a publication on this that you can look up. But the main thing they said is whatever you do, don't make it too fluffy. You know, we're not going to sit around looking at crystals. We want things to be practical, and we want things to be directly relevant to our day-to-day lives. And I'll just skip over, you know, they gave information on how they use the internet, how they want things to look, the language, all those sorts of things were things that we asked them about, and you can read about that online if you'd like to. This sort of information has then been used, I've used it when acting as a consultant on other organisations, online wellbeing, farmer-focused wellbeing programs as well, such as Campfire and Back on Track, which I'm happy to talk a little bit about later if you're interested. So then we had this information from the farmers about how they wanted it, and then what we wanted to do was merge what we knew was likely to be effective from the evidence with what was acceptable to farmers. And when we did that, we went through a big process, a co-design process. And when we did that, we came up with this website. This is the first version of the iFarmWell website, which went live in 2018. It's since had many updates, and the current version of the website currently looks like this. So the way that it works is there's 5 modules that farmers can work through in their own time, and you register, and then you answer questions, and then the information that follows is tailored depending on how you answer the previous questions. And then the program sends you personalised text messages to keep you focused on implementing those strategies into your life. And then 2 weeks later, the next module will become available to you. You'll be notified of that, and then you learn the next lot of strategies that sort of build upon the last. So we did usability and acceptability testing, both qualitatively and quantitatively, so using numbers and through interviews. And what we found was that farmers rated this as the program as acceptable, as engaging, and as really meaningful, which was really, really important. We also asked farmers why, we called those people who didn't complete all of the modules and asked them why. And as you can see, 86 people there said that it was because they were too busy, or they'd not got to it yet. So I think time certainly is a barrier, even though each of these modules only actually takes about 30 minutes to complete. It's not a huge ask, but you know, everyone wants things as delivered as quickly and shortly as possible. I'll skip over that. We then looked at the impact on farmers' short and long-term levels of distress and mental well-being. And pleasingly, what we found were significant improvements in mental well-being and significant reductions in levels of distress. And importantly, these were maintained 6 months after the farmers had completed the last module, which we were really excited about. We only measured at 6 months. We didn't have capacity to measure it any further. Yeah, we were really pleased that they were maintained for that time. But then the question became, okay, so we've got this program that we know is effective. It's easy to scale, and we can make it freely available. But how do we increase the reach? And this is where we really had to get creative. So what we did next was map out a range of barriers to adoption, or what made it difficult for people to do the modules. And then we looked at strategies, evidence-based behaviour change strategies that we thought would help overcome them. So an example of this is we developed testimonial videos. We've done a lot of social media over the years. We actually turned the modules into a podcast, so farmers could get a taste of the content as they were driving along in their tractors or their headers or their trucks. We did training with people who were likely to encounter farmers who were distressed and would benefit from the modules, such as rural financial counsellors. We developed conversation starters to help people talk about the resource. Other organisations have promoted it, and we've even created a lend a hand to a mate feature where you can send a link to someone you think may benefit from it. And of course, we've been at many conferences. And But I'm just going to play a video now of a farmer, Kim, who has done the modules and is going to tell you a little bit about how he found them.
Yeah, hi, I'm Kim From, and I live near Peakner and growing wheat and barley and merino sheep. Yeah, well, I suppose I've come out of a bad relationship and went through the divorce and the loss of most of my farm, and that was a fairly bad circumstance, plus a few other things, my mother dying and a few other things that happened there. The last 2 years have been the worst 2 consecutive drought years on record, so that's really put a lot of financial pressure on me as well. What I loved about iFarmWell was the relevance that it had to the way farmers think, because they do think differently to other people. They're out in the elements by themselves, working hard, some ridiculous hours at times, 7 days a week. And it's easy to get yourself into a corner that you don't realise coming up until you're there. So that's what I loved about it. It talked a language that I could understand. It was like they were talking to me. They were describing the ways that I felt and that sort of thing, and also had solutions on how to remedy that and get out of the situation that I'm in. So the fact that there's more than just one person that's got this, it's not just me, it's actually a lot of other people, and it's actually more common than I realised. That was a bit of a light bulb moment for me. I found iFarmWell really easy to use, actually. I do a little bit on computers, but I'm not by any means fantastic at it. But I really enjoyed the format, the easy format of it, easy to get good information, the sort of information that I wanted, and it left me with tools that I could use when I was finished the whole thing. Good thing about iFarmWell is that it helps you identify the problems that you've got and your thoughts, the way your thought patterns are going wrong. And not only does it identify those things, but it will actually give you tools to be able to get over those problems that you've identified. You're going to get lots of droughts and extreme situations in farming. And it's easy to feel as though you're losing control of what you're trying to achieve, especially if money gets tight and that sort of stuff, and what you want to happen is just not happening for you. What I liked about iFarmWell is not to get too intense on those sort of thoughts and let those thoughts back you into a corner, because these things happen. Realise what you can control and realise the things that you can't control, and move on from there. And the fact that you can control some parts of your life makes you feel better about things, rather than feeling totally out of whack.
So, a big thanks to Kim for doing that video. So we did testimonials videos like Kim's, as I said, to help increase the reach of our free online resource. But particularly as a result after COVID, we found that engagement actually dropped off with our modules, and we're not really sure why that is. Potentially during that period, more things became available online. It's got lost in the crowd, perhaps. I'm not sure. We suspect that our text messages have become less powerful because people are receiving a lot of different text message reminders and things, a lot more than they were when we first developed the program in 2018. But other organisations who have online programs tell me that they've experienced similar things. So we wanted to get creative about how we got these really important strategies and skills out to farmers, which we knew really could make a big difference to their lives. So we partnered up with a farmer. His name's John Gladigo, and John is a farmer himself who's also a closet playwright. And with his community, he actually wrote a play that integrated a number of the iFarmWell strategies into it, and then his community have done dozens of productions of this show, dinner show, over the years. He's actually done 3 different versions of it over the years. The first one was based upon the top 10 tips that I could give him to help farmers improve their own well-being. The next one, I can't actually even remember what that one was based on. And the third one, we've got a new relationships module on the iFarmWell website, and he actually wrote the whole play around the strategies that are contained within the relationships module, and he does it in a very humorous, fun way. So that's been a great success. Something else that we've done, at the end of each show, I will stand up at the end and ask people to identify one thing they're going to do differently as a result of seeing the show. And then we ask them to scan a QR code and set that goal for themselves. And then we send them text message reminders about what they've promised themselves they will do. And then we check in to see whether or not they have achieved that. And remarkably, it has led to a huge amount of behaviour change in our farming communities, which has been fantastic. After the success of Kick Off Your Boots, the musical, we were actually asked by a community to continue the conversation. So they really liked that all this attention was being put on wellbeing, but they said we don't want the conversation to stop. So we actually then developed a social network campaign, and this was called Vocal Locals. And the way that this worked was that we had about 10 vocal locals, or 10 local farmers, who completed the iFarm Well modules. And then we had a one-day mental health workshop where we all came together. And then we asked them to post weekly, or at least weekly, on social media about what they were doing to improve their own well-being. Just simple things that they were engaging in every day. And they were supported to develop that post with a wellbeing coach who was in the local area, because we were aware that for some people, framing this sort of stuff and making it public wouldn't be all that easy. And over the 8-week campaign, we also had a number of dinners to connect the vocal locals with each other and the project team. And what we were really wanting to do with this initiative was to test whether an ambassador-led social network campaign could increase conversations about mental health and well-being, if it could increase the community's comfort in speaking to each other about mental health, and if it could increase these community members' engagement in their own well-being promoting practices. What we found was it did. So we saw significant improvements in the broader community around the number of conversations they were having about mental health. We also saw improvements in their comfort in talking about mental health and well-being, and we saw significant increases in perceived amount of time they were spending on improving their own well-being. So they were all really positive results. But then, of course, we kept having more ideas, and other groups came to us and said that they would really like workshops around work-life balance for farming families. So this is another initiative that we actually co-designed with farmers, and we like to do things differently, and we evaluate and test things all the time, so we're continually improving. And one of the unique things we were testing, we decided to test with these work-life balance workshops for farmers, was having a farmer actually facilitate them. So a lot of the content was written by myself as a psychologist, but it was delivered by farmers sort of using a storytelling format, and also it was sort of a real discussion with the other audience members. Yeah, that's another example of how we've continued to try and get these iFarm Well messages out into communities. On a different level, another thing we've been advocating for over about the last 5 years is an Australian-wide, a national industry-based approach to improving farmers' mental health and well-being. And I guess this came from the fact that we started doing, these little things in certain communities, and all these other communities started wanting the same sorts of things, and it wasn't really possible for me and my team to meet the needs of all these communities sort of individually. So that's when we started to really think big about how we could really change the mental health landscape in farming communities across Australia. There are similar industry-based approaches to preventing suicide and improving wellbeing in other industries in Australia, such as the construction industry. And over the last 5 years, we have seen some gains in coming together with the National Farmers Federation, for example, and trying to develop a more cohesive and comprehensive approach across the industry, which has been really, really great. As part of that, we've also been trying to get federal funding from the government to um, to roll this out, and unfortunately, that has not been successful. We haven't. I think we tried 3 years in a row, and we weren't able to get the money that we really wanted, which would have enabled us to establish a national advisory committee, which we would like to be chaired by a farmer with lived experience. It would also enable us to develop a national outcomes monitoring system so we can monitor wellbeing in farming communities and suicide data over time. It would have enabled a national education campaign, as well as a national farmer-friendly helpline, and a scaling up all of our existing resources, such as the online modules. But that hasn't been successful, but we'll keep trying, of course. In the last 12 months, my state of South Australia has actually encountered a really terrible drought. So when we weren't having much luck at the federal level, we decided to consciously turn our attention to supporting people a bit closer to home. And in conjunction with a number of agricultural industry groups, we've just last week launched this new campaign called Weather It Together, which is around educating farmers about 4 key behaviours that they can use to improve their wellbeing. And you can learn more about it if you go to weatherittogether.org.au. But again, this was co-designed with farmers using language that they relate to, and done in conjunction with agricultural industry partners.
Wow.
So I don't expect you to be able to read all of this, but but as you can see, you know, it's been quite a long journey to get to where we are today. If you want to take a screenshot of it and read it later, you're more than welcome. Yeah, there's a number of other things along the way. But yeah, designing something, I guess, is the easy part. Getting it out there and into communities and ensuring it remains sustainable is the challenge. So I hope that's been useful to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Kate.